So one of the most important parts about computer science, about programming in specific, is to recognize patterns, because we talked about, I mean, the videos that you watched talked about looping, they talked about functions. Functions would be something you wanted to use over again. Looping talks about iteration, things that happen over and over again. Now with looping, patterns are what is important. If you find something that is a pattern in your program, something that happens the same way over and over again, then you can put it into a loop and it'll make your life a lot easier. So let's just talk about this this grid. Now there's a whole bunch of patterns here. Obviously you've got 9 squares that are done just the same way, but in order to program them you have to think logically. If you were going to have a function that drew one square of this grid. So you could do that. You could have a function that draws a square. Then how do you arrange that into a program so that they all pop themselves in 3 spots? You know, there's no right answer to what I'm saying here, but that would be one way of thinking about it. The other thing is zoom out a little bit and look at bigger patterns. So you could think about the pattern of this. So if you started up here, let's say you started your program here and you went straight across, you went down 1 and you went over, and then you went down 1 and you went over, and you went down 1 and you went over. So that itself is a pattern. So it's kind of a reverse pattern. You could do it there. That's a pattern. This is a pattern. That's a pattern. You could do a pattern like this. Over, down, over, down, over, down. That would be a pattern. Would it make sense to draw your grid that way? I'm not so sure. So the point is that you have to stop and think about, before you actually develop your algorithm, which is how you're going to lay out your program, and that's what this exercise was about, you have to think about what are the patterns and how do you want to arrange the patterns to make sense. What it looks like you started to do was to just do absolutely everything one step at a time, which the computer can do and it will work. And we're not going to take any points off for it. But the idea of the loops allows you to think about what are the patterns. So for an example, here's a thought for you. One pattern, let's say you started your program here and you did the move forward and then turn, move forward and turn, and then instead of stopping with just these 4 sides, so you went this way, down, over, this way, and here. So you made it kind of have 5 sides. Now you're going to end up here. If you started that same program, it's going to do this, right? Well, where was I? Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now you're here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now you're here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So you could theoretically do a square with 5 sides instead of 4, just meaning you're repeating one. And if you repeat that 3 times, it's going to give you this top piece. So even if you did a program where you had that was one loop, and then in between, or it was a loop of 3 functions, right? Your function, oh, excuse my dog, I'm so sorry. Your function is over, down, over, up, over. That's your function. The loop, which is your repeat, is doing that same thing 3 times, and it's going to give you this piece at the top of the grid. Then if you, in your program, so let's say you had it and you looped the function 3 times. Then under that, you put in some code that allows you to go back, whatever this is, end up back over here, and then repeat that again. Then you could just repeat that whole thing 3 times and you would have a grid. What I'm saying here is I'm not telling you how to do it or what the right way or the wrong way is. What I'm trying to explain is how to think about what it is that you have to do. So think about the function and think about the loop and think about the patterns and see if you can come up with something that makes sense.